The sensor alarm screamed through the bridge, red lights pulsing like the heartbeat of a creature that shouldn't exist. The crew froze, staring at the main screen in disbelief. "Warning! A human! The sector's been invaded!" the automated voice echoed, cold and precise. It felt wrong. Humans weren't supposed to be here, not this far into uncharted space. And yet there it was. A warship. Massive, gleaming, bristling with weapons, cutting through the darkness like a blade. No one had expected this. Reports had been sketchy, rumors dismissed as paranoia. But now, the reality was impossible to ignore. The alien sector had never seen humans before. Their records showed nothing, no history of contact. And yet, here they were, in numbers that suggested planning, strategy, intent. The tension in the room was thick, every officer holding their breath, waiting for the next alert, the next movement. The captain's eyes narrowed as they studied the readings. Every system on their ship was functioning. Every sensor confirmed the impossible. The ship was closing in, and it wasn't alone. There were smaller crafts darting ahead, scouting, probing defenses. The humans moved like predators, coordinated, silent, and terrifyingly efficient. There was no time to react, only time to watch and wonder. What did they want? Were they exploring? Were they hunting? Or was this the beginning of a war that no one saw coming? Down in the lower decks, engineers whispered in tense urgency, running calculations, checking shields, rerouting power. Every station felt the weight of anticipation, the tightrope balance between curiosity and fear. This was more than an encounter. This was history bending, rewriting itself in real time. For the first time, the aliens understood that humans were not just survivors. They were unstoppable when cornered, unpredictable when challenged. Across the sector, reports started to pour in from neighboring systems. Sensors picked up the same human signature, the same design. It was clear they weren't a single ship. This was an invasion force, and it was coming straight for them. Every simulation they ran predicted disaster, yet every simulation underestimated the humans' resilience, their adaptability. The crew began to realize that no matter what they did, conventional tactics might not be enough. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the human warship changed course. Not away, not retreating, but moving in a way that made every officer instinctively tense. Whatever their plan was, it wasn't predictable. It wasn't logical. And that was the most terrifying part. As the main view flickered with the human ship's imposing silhouette, the captain's voice cut through the tension. "Prepare for communication. And whatever happens next, brace for anything." Every heart on the bridge raced. Outside, the dark void of space waited, silent. Inside, every mind knew one thing: the sector would never be the same. And none of them could guess what the humans would do next. The screen blinked. A new blip appeared. Closer, faster, and then a transmission began to crackle. The transmission crackled, distorted by static. But there was a rhythm to it, a deliberate pacing that made every officer lean forward. The captain's hand hovered over the comms panel, hesitant. Every instinct screamed caution, but curiosity pushed harder. The message was in human language, surprisingly clear, though there was something in the tone, something unyielding, confident, and undeniably commanding. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't a demand. It was a statement of presence, a declaration that they were here and they weren't leaving. Meanwhile, whispers spread through the crew. Many had never seen humans before. The alien officers had heard myths, legends passed down from explorers who barely survived encounters on the edges of known space. Humans were described as unpredictable, dangerous, and relentless. But until now, no one had ever believed it. Now, the legends were tangible, and every sensor reading, every blip on the map confirmed the truth. This was a human warship, and it was just the beginning. The navigator adjusted the view, zooming in on the vessel. Its hull reflected the faint glow of nearby stars, almost like it was alive, almost like it was daring the sector's defenders to make the first move. Smaller crafts swarmed around it, moving in tight formations, scanning, mapping, probing every possible weakness. The ship's scale was breathtaking. The design wasn't alien. It didn't follow the familiar patterns or technology of the sector's inhabitants. And yet, it wasn't fragile. It radiated power, discipline, and an efficiency that made the crew wonder how a single species could have mastered so much so quickly. Back on the bridge, the captain called the senior strategist to their side. "We need to understand them, not just what they are, but why they're here. Every report from the outer systems suggests this isn't accidental." The strategist's eyes flickered over the readings, over the intercepted signals from other nearby sectors. "They're methodical," the strategist said, voice low. "Every move, every signal, every craft, they're coordinating. This isn't exploration. This isn't random contact. They have a plan, and it's bigger than anything we've faced before." As the crew worked, the ship's internal communication channels buzzed with activity. Engineers speculated over shield capacities and energy rerouting. Security officers discussed potential boarding scenarios, though no one truly believed they would survive a direct confrontation. Even the youngest cadets whispered about the humans' reputation, the stories that described their ability to adapt, to strike with precision, and to survive situations that would destroy any other species. Fear mixed with awe, and the air felt heavier with every passing minute. Outside, the human warship held its position, its weapons arrays silent but ominous. Its sheer presence seemed to warp the surrounding space, forcing the crew to confront a chilling possibility. Maybe this wasn't just about territory. Maybe humans had goals that went beyond conquest, goals that no one could anticipate. And then, just when tension had reached a peak, a secondary blip appeared near the edge of the sector. Another human vessel, smaller, faster, almost ghost-like. It wasn't a scout. It wasn't a messenger. Whatever it was moving toward them, cutting through space with a precision that made the crew's nerves fray. The captain's gaze locked on the view screen, voice barely above a whisper. "Whatever they're planning, we're about to find out. Brace for their next move." Inside, hearts pounded. Outside, space waited, silent and infinite, hiding the next act in the human's unfolding plan. The smaller human vessel moved like a shadow, darting between sensor blind spots and forcing the crew to scramble. From the observation deck, the tactical officer reported every movement with growing urgency. "It's too fast for our intercept drones," they said, voice tight. "It's calculating every maneuver before we even react." The captain didn't speak, only nodded, eyes locked on the approaching blip. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't just a scouting mission. Humans were probing weaknesses, testing responses, and learning at a pace that felt impossible. Meanwhile, in the lower engineering deck, the chief engineer was running calculations frantically. Power reroutes, shield reinforcement, emergency maneuvers. All of it was being processed and discarded in moments, each solution failing to fully account for the human vessel's speed and unpredictability. The engineer glanced at the assistant and muttered, "I've never seen anything like this. They're adaptive. Every time we try to anticipate them, they're already one step ahead." Across the ship, the communications team intercepted scrambled transmissions from the smaller human craft. The signals were fragmented, but the cadence, the repetition, the rhythm of the data suggested a message, or maybe a warning. No one could decipher it yet, but the sense of being watched, measured, and analyzed was unmistakable. The aliens had never felt something like it before, a species that didn't just respond, but seemed to predict, to shape the battlefield without showing its hand. In the observation deck, junior officers whispered about what this could mean. "Why would humans come this far?" one asked. "Are they here to conquer, or something else?" Their question hung in the air, unanswered. The captain's gaze remained fixed on the blip. There was no fear in their eyes, only a cold calculation. This wasn't about retreat. It was about surviving, learning, and preparing for whatever came next. The tension wasn't confined to the bridge. In the cargo bay, security teams prepped for a potential boarding. Weapons were checked, defenses reinforced, and strategies discussed in hushed tones. No one wanted to admit it, but the idea of humans boarding the ship filled the crew with a mix of dread and fascination. Stories of human resilience and combat skill were legendary. They were survivors, fighters, and problem solvers in ways the sector's inhabitants had never imagined. Outside, the main human warship remained stationary, a silent threat hanging in space. It seemed almost patient. Observers aboard the alien vessel began speculating. Perhaps the humans were waiting for something. Perhaps they were forcing a choice, testing reactions, seeing how the aliens would respond under pressure. And if that was true, then every second of hesitation, every minor mistake, could be catastrophic. As the minutes stretched, the secondary human vessel approached closer, weaving between asteroid fields and sensor grids. The captain finally broke the silence. Divert all scanning to them. I want to know what they're capable of before they decide to strike. And prepare for anything. This isn't a drill. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was heavy. Every officer felt it. The knowledge that their next move could decide the fate of the sector. A soft alarm sounded in the communications room. The human craft had stopped, its position calculated perfectly, almost as if it knew exactly where to be. Then a pulse emitted from it, faint but unmistakable. The ship shivered, systems flickered. Every eye on the bridge widened. Whatever the humans were doing, it wasn't just a threat, it was a message, and no one could guess what it meant. The pulse from the smaller human craft reverberated through the ship's systems, a soft hum that grew into a sharp, almost threatening vibration. Lights flickered across the bridge, displays jittering as sensors struggled to process the sudden anomaly. The captain's hand tightened on the rail. "Report!" they barked, voice calm but edged with tension. Every officer held their breath. No one had ever felt a ship react to an external signal like this. It was as if the humans weren't just here in space, they were inside their systems, reading them, predicting them. The tactical officer's fingers flew over the console. Shields are holding, but energy readings are spiking. This pulse isn't a weapon, at least not in the conventional sense. It's probing, mapping, learning. The words hung heavy in the air. To an alien crew, strategy was calculation, prediction, and rigid protocol. Humans didn't follow those rules. They adapted, improvised, and turned every advantage into something unexpected. In the observation deck, junior officers pressed against the viewports, watching the smaller human craft hover near the main warship. The human vessels moved in perfect synchrony, almost like a single organism, weaving patterns that seemed random but had a deadly purpose. Every movement suggested confidence, control, and the unnerving knowledge that nothing the alien ship could do would be a total surprise. Meanwhile, the chief engineer shouted from the lower deck, "We're losing auxiliary power in 3 sectors. I don't know how they're doing this, but whatever it is, it's affecting the core systems. If it continues, we could lose propulsion." Panic rippled through the engineers, but the captain's voice cut through it. "Contain it. Reinforce the primary conduits. Keep me posted second by second." Every command felt like a gamble, and the crew knew it. Outside, the main human warship began to shift. It wasn't an attack yet. There was no flash of weapons, no missile trails, but the movement was deliberate, slow, and calculated. It positioned itself between the alien vessel and the nearest jump point, cutting off escape routes without firing a shot. The realization spread quickly. This was about control, not destruction. The humans weren't here to fight blindly. They were here to dominate the decision, the battlefield, and the timing of every action. Back on the bridge, whispers turned into tension-laden discussions. "They could disable us without even entering combat," one officer said. If they know this much, what else can they do? The captain didn't answer immediately, only stared at the screen as if trying to read the human's intent, trying to anticipate the impossible. Then a sudden flash from the smaller human craft caught everyone off guard. Sensors picked up a rapid energy discharge, though it didn't hit the alien ship. Instead, it sent shockwaves through the surrounding space, disrupting nearby asteroid fields and debris. It was a warning, or maybe a demonstration. Either way, it left no doubt in the crew's minds. The humans were not bluffing. The bridge fell silent. Every eye was on the screen, every hand hovering over consoles. The pulse of tension was almost physical, a heavy pressure in the air. No one moved, no one spoke. And then the comm system lit up, the human voice cutting through the static, calm but commanding. You cannot hide, you cannot flee, prepare. The words were simple, yet every person aboard felt the weight behind them. Outside, the human warship loomed, silent but lethal. Inside, the alien crew braced, hearts pounding, knowing that whatever happened next would decide the fate of the sector, and perhaps all the territories beyond. The countdown to confrontation had begun. Just as the crew braced for the first strike, the main human warship shifted again, but this time in a way no one expected. It didn't move toward them, didn't fire. Instead, a strange field rippled outward, bending light, warping space, and interfering with every sensor on the alien vessel. The readings went haywire, instruments flickered, displays scrambled. It was as if the humans were rewriting the rules of engagement in real time, forcing the aliens to confront an entirely new kind of threat. The captain slammed a hand on the console. Status! Every officer scrambled, but even the most advanced systems couldn't make sense of what was happening. We're blind in 2 sectors. Shield integrity dropping. Navigation is unreliable. I've never seen anything like this. The tactical officer shouted, panic edged with awe. The crew realized the humans weren't just powerful, they were clever. They weren't attacking with brute force yet. They were dismantling confidence, control, and predictability, one subtle move at a time. Down in the communications room, operators intercepted another pulse. This one stronger, more structured, almost like a rhythm, a heartbeat of a strategy the alien crew couldn't interpret. It's communicating with us, or maybe with itself, one operator said, voice trembling. It's like it's learning from our systems. The words hung in the air, chilling everyone aboard. Humans weren't just intruders, they were adaptive, thinking, calculating in ways no one had anticipated. At the same time, the smaller human craft broke formation. It darted toward one of the sector's resource satellites, which was critical for fuel and supplies. The crew watched helplessly as the vessel maneuvered with precision, bypassing defenses, and began extracting energy in a way that threatened to cripple the aliens' supply lines. The realization hit: the humans had a strategy, a larger plan. This wasn't just about confrontation, it was about control of the sector, about forcing the aliens into a corner before even firing a shot. On the bridge, junior officers whispered in disbelief. They're taking our resources without even fighting us. The captain didn't respond, only narrowed their eyes. The weight of responsibility pressed down on them. Every decision mattered. Every move could tip the balance. And now the stakes were higher than ever. They weren't just defending a ship. They were defending their entire sector, their home systems, and the lives that depended on them. And then came the most unexpected signal yet, a transmission from deep within the human warship itself. Unlike the previous warning, this one was direct, almost personal. It wasn't just a statement. It was a challenge. Your sector is known, the voice said, calm, almost conversational. Your systems, your strengths, your weaknesses, we know them all. Prepare, or you will learn the cost. The sheer confidence, the precision, the human certainty, it stunned the crew into silence. Even as alarms blared and shields strained, another complication arose. The secondary human craft had vanished from sensors, only to reappear at the far side of the sector near a jump point used for reinforcements. Whoever was watching realized the humans could strike anywhere, anytime, splitting their forces, testing the aliens from multiple directions simultaneously. Panic and awe battled in equal measure aboard the alien ship. The captain's hand hovered over the command panel, voice low but sharp. "They're not just here to fight. They're here to outthink us. Every second counts. Brace for the next move. And remember, we have to survive this. Every choice matters." Outside, the human warships held their positions, silent, powerful, and terrifyingly patient. Inside, the alien crew could feel the full weight of the war they had never imagined. And somewhere in the shadows of space, humans waited, watching, ready to make the next move that could change everything. The tension reached its peak as the human warships moved with unstoppable precision. The main vessel advanced, cutting off all possible escape routes, while the smaller craft darted around the sector, striking at resource points and systems with surgical accuracy. The alien crew braced for a full assault, expecting devastation. But what came next was something they hadn't predicted. A sudden energy pulse erupted from the main human ship. It didn't destroy. They hadn't fired weapons in the conventional sense, but the pulse overloaded the alien ship's navigation and weapons systems simultaneously. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, and consoles went dark. For a terrifying moment, the alien vessel drifted, powerless, at the mercy of the humans. And then, almost silently, the pulse dissipated. On the bridge, the crew stared at the screens, frozen. The human warships hadn't attacked to kill. They had disabled, neutralized, and demonstrated control. The captain's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Focus. We survive. We adapt. That's the only option." Engineers scrambled to restore systems while tactical officers calculated new strategies. Every human maneuver had a purpose. Every disruption was a test. Then the communication channel lit up again. This time, the human voice was calm, almost conversational. "We did not come to destroy. We came to show you the cost of underestimating us." The words carried authority, certainty, and a strange undercurrent of respect. The crew realized that the humans weren't mindless aggressors. They were skilled, disciplined, and willing to engage without unnecessary destruction. It was a lesson, a warning, and a challenge all at once. The alien captain made a decisive move, ordering a recalibration of shields and rerouting auxiliary power to critical systems. Slowly, systems came back online, and the ship regained partial control. The human warships maintained their positions, observing. The alien crew understood that they had survived not because the humans had spared them, but because the humans were testing intelligence, resilience, and strategy, not recklessness. Just as the crew began to breathe, thinking the confrontation might be over, the smaller human craft executed its final maneuver. It disappeared from one side of the sector and reappeared on the opposite edge, inside the jump gate. Everyone realized simultaneously it had never been a single front. Humans could strike anywhere, anytime, and the sector was no longer just threatened. It was under a new reality. The captain's jaw tightened, staring at the screens. "They're teaching us something bigger than survival. We can't fight them like any other enemy. We have to think differently." The crew exchanged looks of exhaustion, awe, and determination. They had survived the human strike, adapted in real time, and learned the first lesson of facing a species that didn't play by the rules. But then, a final blip appeared on sensors, far beyond the known sector, moving at impossible speed. It wasn't one of the warships. It wasn't in the patterns they had observed. The human presence wasn't limited to what they could see. It was expanding, exploring, and already preparing its next move. The realization hit like a shockwave. The humans hadn't finished. They had only begun. Outside, the stars stretched silently across the void. Inside, every officer knew one thing with terrifying clarity. The sector would never be the same, and neither would they. The alien crew slowly regained control of their ship. Systems hummed back to life, shields stabilized, and navigation recalibrated. The sense of chaos that had dominated the last few hours began to ease, but the memory of the human's presence lingered like a shadow across every deck. Everyone aboard knew they had faced something far beyond a simple battle. They had encountered a force that challenged every assumption, every tactic, and every instinct they had ever trusted. On the bridge, the captain stood silently, watching the human warships retreat just beyond sensor range. There was no celebration, no relief, only recognition. The humans hadn't come to destroy, but to demonstrate power, discipline, and strategy. They had reshaped the battlefield without firing a conventional shot, proving that survival often required more than raw strength. It required intelligence, adaptability, and courage. The sector had been tested, and now the crew understood that the rules of engagement had changed forever. In the engineering deck, the chief engineer let out a long breath, leaning against the console. "We made it," they said softly, almost to themselves. But the statement carried a different weight now. We didn't win. We survived. And that's the first step. Around them, teams worked to repair minor damage and stabilize remaining systems. The lessons were already clear. Adaptation was survival, and underestimating the humans could cost everything. Across the ship, junior officers gathered near the observation deck, watching the stars where the human ships had disappeared. Conversations were subdued, thoughtful, reflective. "They're not just warriors," one whispered. "They're teachers, in a way, showing us what it means to think, to anticipate, to act with precision." The realization spread quickly. Humanity's strength wasn't only in firepower, it was in strategy, coordination, and the ability to evolve faster than any threat. The captain finally spoke, breaking the quiet with a tone that carried authority and insight. "We have survived this encounter, but survival is only the beginning. We've seen what humans are capable of, and we've learned what we need to survive the next encounter. This sector will rebuild, adapt, and be ready. And if the humans return, we will be ready too." There was a calm determination in the statement, a resolve born of fear, respect, and experience. Outside the ship, the stars stretched endlessly. The human warships had vanished, but the memory of their presence lingered like an echo across the sector. The lesson was clear. Strength alone was not enough, and the ability to adapt, to think beyond what was known, would define the future. The alien crew carried that lesson with them, a reminder of the human warship's unexpected impact. As the ship prepared to jump to a safer sector, the crew took one last look at the horizon. Silence filled the observation deck, but it was a quiet full of respect, reflection, and determination. Humanity had challenged them, changed them, and left a mark that would not fade. The sector was safe for now, but the knowledge remained. Humans could arrive anywhere, anytime, and they would always bring the unexpected. And for the alien crew, that knowledge was a warning, a lesson, and, in its own way, a gift. The stars waited. Space was vast. And the humans, unpredictable, brilliant, and relentless, were already out there, shaping the galaxy in ways no one could ignore.